What's going on, world? Coming at you guys again. We got another quick video. The Second Amendment. Let's talk about it. So, if you guys had the chance and opportunity to check out some of my videos, the last video I made, I talked to you about the first executive order in which I would initiate as president, and that was the Department of Economic Prosperity, to where we utilize investment funds, not taxpayer funds, to help facilitate financial support for American programs and American citizens. The second executive order I want to talk to you about today is an executive order that recognizes constitutional carry on a federal level, right? So, my second executive order would recognize constitutional carry on a federal level, which means specifically that if you, as an American citizen, wanted to carry or bear an arm, whether rifle, shotgun, or pistol, open or concealed, it would be your right and your choice to do so without a permit. It would recognize that any and every American citizen that wanted to bear an arm in a open or concealed manner could do so without the threat of prosecution and having the full support of the federal government to help support if they were to be convicted or prosecuted on a state county level based off of this concealed carry permit situation. This would also include any and every American citizen that has ever been convicted of a crime for carrying a firearm in a concealed manner without a permit, and they received a felony or misdemeanor. This would overturn all of that immediately. Now, the Second Amendment specifically states shall not be infringed, and there is numerous case law. There are many statements as well as different forms of judgments that have come out saying specifically that carrying concealed is common, to include the late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Now, a lot of people may have issue with this, but at the same time, we have to call out those same individuals who are having a problem with recognizing the Second Amendment for what it's supposed to be, for the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, to include safety and security of the individual's family, of the individual's personal property, as well as country. Because at the end of the day, we cannot advocate for permits for an individuals to carry a firearm in a concealed manner, but also be okay with anyone and everyone voting without some type of a license or permit or identification. That's a complete hypocrisy. So moving forward, right, it has to have some form of balance. That's what the judicial process is. Lady Justice is blind justice. It is about balance. So my second executive order would be recognizing constitutional carry on a federal level with federal support for any American citizen that has or ever will be tried and prosecuted for carrying a firearm in a concealed manner without a permit. So, if you are an individual who has been prosecuted and convicted, or will be, or find themselves in a position that they will be prosecuted for carrying a firearm in a concealed manner without a permit, and that's declared to be illegal, then it would make, and it would be very productive for you to reach out so we can get a list of individuals, American citizens, whom fall into this category, because it's unconstitutional. The late Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg said it was unconstitutional. She said that carrying a firearm or a pistol in your pocket is common and it is acknowledged in the Second Amendment, as well as there's a hypocrisy based off of the application of permits that Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas had spoke about in the last ruling about how in Florida, when permits were enacted, they were only specifically based off of the consensus that newly freed slaves were carrying firearms to secure themselves in a concealed manner, and it was unfortunately causing the safety concern for the individuals whom they lived around that wanted to do them harm. And so that's why permits were enacted in order to facilitate the inability for newly freed slaves to defend and secure themselves. Because, as we all know, the reality of the situation is they were greatly outnumbered. So, and then when you go look at other historical documentation for the evolution of a firearm, when you go look at numerous situations for engagement, as well as the history and development and advancement and evolution of America as a whole, there is no doubt that carrying a firearm or a weapon in a concealed manner was done so and was acceptable before the Second Amendment was written and ratified, during the Second Amendment was written and ratified, and then maybe 50 years after the Second Amendment was written and ratified, that it was socially acceptable for norms and mores. So that would be my second executive order, recognizing all American citizens having that right to carry a firearm in a concealed manner without a permit. And again, for all American citizens that have ever been convicted for carrying a firearm in a concealed manner, in which they received a misdemeanor or felony based off of doing this because they didn't have a permit, well, all of that would go away. That would be completely wiped off. It would be expunged. It would be pardoned, and there would be financial compensation for it, because the reality situation is America is designed to support its citizens, and we need Americans to act like patriots, whether active duty, whether as a law enforcement officer, whether as a correctional officer, whatever situation you find yourself to where you're carrying a firearm to defend yourself, to defend your property, to defend your family, and to defend your country. America is here for you. So if you guys are interested, like, share, subscribe, follow, send a comment down below, and we can add your name to the list, so when this executive order goes out, you won't be missed.